Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Adam and John's Rigging Chat. It's been a little while since we recorded this. You can see my hair is significantly shorter than when we did it, but we've just had a load of things going on, so I've packaged this episode together ready for you to have a listen. This one's a bit more of a catch-up because John actually moved away abroad and we have loads of stuff to talk about and discuss. It's kind of an interesting one, a bit more like a podcast for you to just listen to rather than watch things on screen, just because you get to hear about his experience so far with moving abroad to work in the animation industry, starting out and getting used to all those new things that you have with an exciting move like he had. So have a listen, see what you think, and maybe we'll do another series of episodes of something else in the future. I hope you enjoy. Hey John, how's it going? I see you are now in a new location. Why didn't you tell people about where you are?
So as you can see, I'm now currently in Finland, Helsinki, due to getting a job with a studio called Gigglebug Entertainment. This has happened whilst ongoing with my studies at university. So it's been quite hectic, relocating because of COVID. And Brexit has made immigrating quite difficult. Past 2 months for me have been very, very chaotic, but finally settling in now. And I'm hoping we can continue this sort of podcast, sort of rigging chat series we've got going.
Yeah, it's really good that one, you're still finding the time, because I can remember when you told me that you had an offer and then you went through all the interviewee stuff and then you got the place and I know what it's like. It's difficult because you're trying to find spare time whilst not only doing work but also all the new stuff that comes with moving to somewhere new, and it's exciting. But obviously, you've got a lot of things to sort out and paperwork to fill out and everything like that. So it's really cool that you are still up for finishing these. So this is going to be a little bit of just an update for everybody who's maybe wondering what the difference is between episode 2 and onwards, and you'll also maybe get some insight. Maybe I don't know how the rig is going to go, but Jonathan's sort of understanding of rigging in Toon Boom is obviously going to change because of his situation. So when you're rigging all the time, you're going to find that you're going to be learning very quickly. So that shift from being a student to being a professional is quite a significant one. But I was thinking, Jonathan, maybe you want to talk a little bit about, just for people who are interested in the animation industry and the fact that you can go all over the world with this kind of job, what it's been like the first time you moved away from good old England to Helsinki, and a different country and everything that entails.
So with traveling, there's many complications as it is. Like, it's quite stressful packing everything, getting all your luggage and the tickets. But with COVID, there's a few more complications. So I've had to get I can't remember the name of it, but I think it's a PCR test. Like, you have to go to a private or commercial company and pay like £200 for a specific COVID test, which is like a fit flight certificate. There's a travel declaration. It's just mainly paperwork. Getting that all organized in the first place is quite a hectic thing to do. And then traveling itself, it's all right. You just sit on a plane, not too difficult. Getting to Helsinki was rather strange, almost alien-like, since everything's in a different language. People drive on the other side of the road. It's very different from the UK, and even simple things like shopping for food. Funny story, actually. I was planning to make ham and cheese sandwiches for like lunches at work.
Good standard sandwich to start with, yeah.
There's a Lidl's, there was a Lidl's where I was staying, and I accidentally bought turkey slices instead of ham slices because obviously I couldn't read the label. So that was quite a funny little.
I thought you were going to tell me there that you bought dog meat.
Oh no!
I was going to wonder what you were going to say, but it's not too bad.
Yeah, everything is still more or less the same, and it's been really great. At the moment, it's currently 30 degrees here. It's weirdly hot here. It's not usually this hot, but it's just so baking. When you step outside, you instantly start to sweat. So definitely more extreme compared to the UK. There's trams here. There's a really good public transportation system. overall the culture here is different. So they have what we call saunas. They pronounce them saunas here. Yeah, I think you know what a sauna is, but there's a cultural thing where you go into a sauna and then afterwards you'll go into some sort of not necessarily icy, but like cold, fresh water, which I experienced in my first month, and it sort of shocks your body. Like your bones feel really brittle, and you feel like you've just been punched in the chest almost. So
sounds a wonderful experience. Yeah.
Apparently, it's quite healthy. But, I mean, afterwards you feel a lot better, but at the moment, your body just sort of shrivels up.
Yeah, I think I saw a documentary before about Finnish sauna, and also the Swedes and the difference between their cultures. And this Finnish dude was like he was in like a really hot pool, but it was sort of inside, but kind of it was outside as well. Like it was heated from the inside, but he had a small little kind of bit. And then he went through into the full outside and rolled around in snow after he jumped in like an ice sponge pool. And he was trying to get the reporter to do it as well. And so it sounds very similar to, like, maybe not quite as extreme, but very similar cold shock experience.
I thought you did that to prevent hypothermia. Or was it?
Well, maybe it's so cold that's what he did. But apparently it was just to kind of like dry off a little bit because of where he was.
As work goes, it's quite strange going from university straight into a job, especially with how I had to do it in parallel with doing university work and studio work.
Yeah, because you're graduating, or you just graduated, haven't you? Really, or
literally just two weeks ago. I think our uni showcase was literally posted this month, so all my work's been showcased there for any potential employees to see. But I've already got a job, so it's a very strange situation, especially considering it's a broad job. It's not even in the UK or working remotely. I know the industry's had quite a boom since COVID because they're encouraging remote working. A lot of studios are expanding out, and the whole not social, but media presence of like Netflix or any other streaming services, they've increased in animation productions, and they're even getting more freelance writers to do stuff, which is quite interesting. So really, really good stuff for the industry.
It is great that you got a job pretty much before you left university. But it just shows you can get stuff. You've just got to get your face in front of somebody who's looking for somebody. A lot of animation, especially at the start, I find in animation, I guess this is the same with a lot of creative industries, but it is a little bit down to, when people say it's down to luck, it's more, I would say, timing. Because if you send out 200 CVs, there's just going to be at the bottom of an email list with everybody else who's sending in CVs. But if you happen to do something that's a little bit different, I remember when I graduated and the people who were doing like marketing, design, they were doing all these kind of like original ways of getting their name in front of somebody who mattered. So they'd come up with like creative ways of sending in a physical version of a portfolio. And you don't have to do those things maybe for your top places you want to work, but I think to start with animation, it's like what you've just done. You took an opportunity, and I remember you emailing me and being a bit like, I could sense there was this is a bit crazy. It's happening quite quick. Shall I leave the UK? And you just got to go with it, and that's how animation can be.
I remember I was having a conversation with my dad about this, and he doesn't really believe in luck. He says that you create your own luck, and it's kind of your responsibility to take or miss opportunities. So for example, with this opportunity, it's kind of strange how it happened, because I was actually messaged on LinkedIn by the production manager or coordinator in Gigglebug on LinkedIn. At first I thought it was a bit of a scam, because I was thinking, surely you don't get a job just by some stranger messaging you online. But I looked into their background, and they were a legitimate company. It was, again, abroad, so in Finland, Helsinki. And at first I thought they were going to ask to do some sort of remote working, maybe at home, or some freelancing, but they actually helped me relocate here. My contract is currently for 6 months, but it might be extended to a year depending on the production. And they've been really helpful and supportive with the whole moving process, settling in and like adjusting to the Finnish culture. They've got people from all around the world here, America, France, just everywhere. It's a heavily international studio.
So I'm going to ask you now, obviously you're under an NDA and you're in a live production situation, so there's only so much you can say about things, but what are you doing in the studio?
My role is effectively the rig. It's called rig artist, but effectively I specialize with props and basically anything that a character might interact with. So say it can range from say a book, a chair if they want to sit down on it, or even bigger stuff. So say vehicles like a tractor or boat. It's quite interesting understanding the way a full-on studio works, because I originally heard the studio started off with 15 people and now they've got 50 to 60. So they've heavily expanded and you've got all these different departments. So I was always aware of like pre-production, production and post, but each department's got sort of sub-departments. So you've got like storyboarding, someone who does animatics, someone who does designs, prop design, character design. And for my department, the rigging department, we always tune boom harmony. A lot of the character riggers are actually Brazilian, which is quite nice. I've learned one word in Brazilian so far, which is bom dia, which means good morning.
Good.
And for me, I think there's one other guy and me who does the prop rigging. So the prop designer will give us a prop. It'd be our responsibility to rig it. They say vectorize it. So basically do the line art, the color art, and if it needs to do any rigging, it's our responsibility to say if you've got a door and it needs to open and close, you might have 2 or 3 different drawing substitutions, a front view, back view, and maybe a 3/4 view. Yeah. There's a lot of important things to do with this role. So naming is a huge, big deal. You have to have everything named in a specific way. Organization, you have to be on top of it. You can't just have all your stuff scattered everywhere. There's a dedicated server where we keep all of our folders and files for everyone to access. So you can't really just have random stuff scattered everywhere.
That's really good to hear, actually. I mean, you were kind of doing Jonathan's top tips from what you've already learned from being in a studio situation. And it's nice to hear you say basically organization and clarity, which I'd put naming under, because and consistency as well, to kind of go back to what you said about starting at a studio of 15 up to 50, 60. That is a really common story right now, especially in Northern Europe, where everybody's kind of expanding. Boulder Media in Ireland, Cavalier. Where else am I thinking of? Lighthouse. Yeah, I mean, Lighthouse were an interesting one because, well, Cartoon Saloon as well. But although Cartoon Saloon, Blue Zoo have grown gradually a bit bigger, whereas places like Boulder went from quite small to quite big in quite fast jumps. I mean, to be honest, Brown Bag in Manchester did the same before they closed their doors to their 2D studio. But it's one of those things, people crew up for productions and they tend to have certain set numbers. You get small, medium and large, super studios and so on. But I would say that kind of anything above, for me, 30 starts to move into that, or probably 35 moves into that mid-sized studio. And it's just because of what you said about everybody's roles, those kind of brackets. So you being a rig artist, but a lot of people do start with props because it allows them to kind of learn the things that they want for characters. And then you move tertiary, secondary, and then primary characters. And then you start commanding a team and then you have people do the job that you started on. So it's that kind of system and the hierarchy which needs that clarity, that communication to run through. And then everybody has to get, on that same page, which I'm sure you're learning quite quickly because you're like, oh, wow, and this is how we do things here. This is how we name things. And that's part of the professionalism of animation, which nobody ever can teach you. People don't really talk about in any specific way because you don't learn it until you get in the studio.
Transitioning from working at university to the studio, the hours was probably the best part because for me, it's almost, you you work whatever hours you want, but they kind of suggest you work roughly 7.5 hours. So if you work more, you get paid overtime. If you work less, you just will catch up with your work. It's always better to get your work done in advance rather than leave it last minute and have deadlines. Originally, I really liked the idea of working on characters. So we had that Frankenstein rig, which I did whilst I was at university. And since doing props, I've realized how the most fundamental basic things are so essential, because even with the most simplest of props, I've now learned, I'm trying to think of an example, I've got to word this carefully without not preaching the NDA. Okay, say you've got a steering wheel. That's a pretty generic item. There was a certain design that was given to me, and the steering wheel had not a perfect design, but sort of like, hand drawn. So it's got a bit of character. It's not like a perfect circle. But the problem is when you want to rotate that circle, if it's, say, an oval shape, the rotation doesn't work because you have one long bit. And then, say, if the top and the bottom are long, the sides will be long when you try and rotate it. So you have to sort of understand how a design can and can't be rigged in a way. It's very hard to just explain, but I think it's sort of something you get with experience. So since I've only been working there for a month, but I've already sort of got to grips what can and can't happen with certain props that you're giving or designs. It is very strange.
And are you finding in that first month, if you were to think back, say the first week, and you go in and you're like, I can rig anything, and then by the end of the 4 weeks, you start to get that thing that you just talked about, where somebody gives you a design, and are you finding you're already going, oh yeah, I'd probably do this way, or you know, your experience is starting to build. You know, you, like you said, you kind of starting to discover the limitations within the parameters of what you do for a job. I.e., you don't have infinite time. The limitations of the software, what the animators are going to be able to do with the prop when you give it to them, and so on.
Deadlines are a huge thing. Any studio, even if you're doing freelance, you're always going to have strict and specific deadlines. It's quite common to overrun deadlines, I feel, because we're kind of currently having that situation here.
Sorry, just to interrupt, because I can say this without breaking any things, but you're on a TV series.
Yes. So the production I'm working on will be on air, I think, next year, I believe. Hopefully, we'll see how the production goes. With whatever project you're working on, I think it is so crucial to set yourself strict deadlines and to have a project finished by then. If it's not finished, just sort of trying to wrap it up at a specific date, and that way you can move on to new things, because that way your skills do definitely develop. It's kind of happened with me with the prop. There's the typical like default layout of Toon Boom that you're given when you open up. I've now completely changed it, which is, I've only noticed it this day, because I think I opened Toon Boom off my old laptop and I realized, what on earth is going on here? All the screens are in the wrong place, and it sort of it never clicked on me how important it is to orientate your software to your preferences. So I've now got, for example, it's hard to explain without showing, but I've now got 3 screens. So I've got the node view on the right, I've got the color palette next to the node view, and then the camera view, and then the drawing view. So it's kind of almost like this. You got all these different screens open, but they're all smaller. It's not just one big giant screen. You've got all these small little windows, but they all have a specific purpose of the workflow that you have. So I've now developed this sort of workflow where I move in not quite a linear fashion, but it basically speeds up the whole process.
It's proof that when you're doing something every day, you start to do tiny little optimizations. Every little thing you end up doing, you go, well, hang on, it takes me 2 seconds longer to do that each time.
Exactly.
People don't think that's anything, but if you're doing a job for 2 years, you're like, all right, okay, or project for 6 months even, it's going to be a lot of time you're saving there.
The efficiency of time, I've noticed, is such a huge thing. So originally I might have spent, say, it's hard to say because it obviously depends on the prop. But say I'm gonna do an average, say you spend a day, do one prop. So it might have a few different drug substitutions. It might need to rotate or have some deformers on it. That might take me, say, a day to do. But with a layout that you're comfortable with and that makes sense and that you're used to, you can slowly sort of shave away time and seconds. And at first, like, oh, it takes me 1 second to click on this and open it. It doesn't sound like much, but if you're doing it about 50 times in one day, then those seconds sort of add up.
And I think there is something to be said as well. I'm a big fan of getting into the way the brain works, the left brain and the right brain. And so for people who don't know, the right brain is considered the creative part. I think I've got that right. And the left part is the more logical. So classic example is when people are drawing on paper, if you use the eraser on the other end of the pencil, that switches from right brain, if you're in a flow of drawing, to left brain. You can obviously, the more you do that kind of thing, the less it becomes a switch. But then if your eraser is in your pencil case and the pencil case's button is closed, and you don't see it exactly where you normally have it, then that's a switch again. So every time you have something like that, kind of just jolts you slightly out of your concentration, your flow state. And what you're talking about is getting into a flow state with the creative task that you are doing. So it's the least resistance possible is what you are trying to create on your desktop.
Yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head with that one, because any time you have to, I don't know how to explain it, but every time you're doing something that's different, switching different, it sort of it's almost like you're working against yourself. So say you've got a prop and it's got loads of straight lines on it, and then you've got some curved lines. Instead of doing a straight line, then a curved line, a straight line, like say you're doing an outline, the way I work now is I do all the straight lines first, because then I use the straight line tool, and then I switch to the curved line tool and then do all the curved lines in one go, because you're not having to switch between the straight line tool and a curved line tool. So it's about that. The only way I can describe it is efficiency. You want to be as efficient as possible with any small task that you do, because with each small task that you get complete, you sort of get further and further to your goal. Quick side note as well, I kind of freaked a few people out with the way I work, since I'm using a mouse to do all my props.
Right, okay.
I don't actually have a Wacom tablet or one of the any other drawing tablets. As for vectorizing, a lot of it is done, well, as you know, with Toon Boom, you can use bitmap or vector, but for the props, the line art needs to be quite clean. There's a very specific way that the designs have to be. So by using the mouse, has the line feature where you can create like a straight line, a C line, or an S line. And I've just been using that with the mouse, and it's actually so much quicker than having to draw everything. I'm probably going to regret it, as when I try and draw something, I'll just be completely useless. But for production's sake, this is a lot more convenient for my sake, but it's probably different for every person. So most people absolutely just prohibit using a mouse to do any kind of drawing or creating. But with Toon Boom, you can get away with it.
Yeah, I think they have really solid Toon Boom as a software package. Harmony has really solid controls and things you can tweak to get, line optimization, the pen stabilizer, little toolbar bit. Like you said, the curve, the line sort of tools, the pen tool itself, the contour editor, that white arrow that allows you to then edit things that you mess up, and then the cutter as well, that you can kind of just go and snip over any overlaps if you are drawing freehand. Because I tend to find if I draw something, on a Cintiq or whatever, draw on screen, I'll still spend a fair amount of time optimizing that drawing to, especially if it's going to be rigged. You need not too many points in there. And so, like you say, if you're drawing it with the tools, it might seem a bit crazy and robotic to people you're working with, but then you are actually saving yourself time on the other side of not having to tweak it all.
You've actually got guidelines and grids that you can create in Toon Boom. It's like this very faint blue line that you can use, and you can actually get your cursor to snap to it. So if you want to create, say, a perfect circle and the center line will be right in the middle of it, you can actually do it all with a mouse. If you do want to work in the animation industry, you don't actually have to be able to draw effectively to animate.
Rigging is a really interesting part of animation where you get to be really creative. You get to be so close to the build of the characters and the initial part of the production. But you don't have to be the the best artist or even a confident artist, you can use your skills creatively in a different way. You can be an amazing creative problem solver. And I love doing both animation and rigging because you get to dip in and out. It's like drawing and then doing something that isn't drawing. It's like switching the two, keeps your brain kind of fresh a little.
It's almost creative problem solving in a way, because there's no wrong or right way of solving a problem. One person will have one method, another may have another. They might have their advantages or disadvantages, but if it does the job and it gets the result you want, then that's job well done.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it. And it is an emerging art form, let's be honest, that rigging at this kind of level hasn't been around for very long. So it's cool that you're doing it, and it's taking you to places like Finland. So that's a bonus.
It's very nice being able to travel and having such an awesome studio. There's so many small but really appreciated things here. So, for example, they've got a coffee machine and a kitchen and a fridge where you can keep all your food or get a hot beverage or just chat to the colleagues. Dogs are allowed. Sometimes someone brings their dog, which is a nice morale booster, seeing a nice fluffy dog just sort of walking in and out. I don't think there's a HR department here, but the whole work ethic is so strongly reinforced here, with having a balance between your work life, your social life, and not to overwork yourself or to burn yourself out. I don't know what it's like in any other studios, but here they say if you need time off, that's completely fine. Obviously, don't sort of take the piss with it and just say, I'm going to take the whole year off.
Yeah, it sounds like they're quite understanding. I mean, I know a little bit about Finnish school system and their kind of like views on things and how they you hear it in the news sometimes, like about their work week ideas and how they try and teach kids. I think they're famous for trying to teach kids empathy at a really early age and things like that in Finland. So it's a bit more like left leaning than you'd say maybe the UK is, or at least the way the UK is going sometimes. But without going into the politics too much. But it's really cool that you are getting that opportunity to kind of experience this, because then you go somewhere else and it is a workplace and it's an individual choice, but you could go to another studio and then you will be going, well, this is actually like better or worse than the situation, or I preferred this one or that one. And that experience allows you to kind of to pass it on, because you're having a decent experience by the sounds of it, but sometimes people go to a place or a couple of places and they don't have a good experience and they just think that's how it is. And it needs somebody like who knows you don't have to be treated like this to come and tell them, actually, you don't, they shouldn't be working you into the bone and so on. Sorry, I want to correct myself. That I said working you into the bone, working you into the ground, working you to the bone. Thanks for listening to our episode. I hope you found loads of good stuff in there and you enjoyed it. If you'd like to find more from us, let us know, let me know on the channel, and just send a little message, a comment, a like, anything like that. And don't forget to subscribe. That really helps. It encourages me, fills me with energy, and makes me want to make more videos for you. Obviously, we've got our tips and tricks videos, and there's also the interviewee kind of things, the more story, long form based things to listen to in the background whilst you're away animating or rigging. Let us know which one you'd prefer more of, and I'm going to endeavour to do more of those things. Again, thanks for listening, and I hope to see you in another video soon.